Muhammad Ali is widely regarded as the greatest boxer of all time. Make sure to hit the like button and watch till end. I am sure that you don't want to miss some of the crazy stuffs. While there have been better punchers and boxers with better records or more victories, nobody had what Ali brought to the table. He was a phenomenal champion, the greatest entertainer, and the leading activist for human rights amongst all athletes. In this video, we will explore Ali's life story, his greatness in boxing, his great service to humanity, his famous trash talk, but also his stepping out of line and stubbornness that kept him in the ring for too long. Early life and boxing beginnings. Born in Kentucky in 1942, Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. grew up in the American South in a time of severe racial segregation. His father, Cassius Clay Sr., supported a wife and 2 sons by painting billboards while his mother worked as a household domestic. Growing up poor and racially oppressed, young Cassius quickly learned he'd have to fight for everything in life. When his bike was stolen at the age of 12, he told a police officer, Joe Martin, that he wanted to beat up the thief. As a twist of fate would have it, Joe Martin was also a boxing trainer at the local gym, and he invited the young man to come train there and learn how to fight. From that moment on, everything would change in the life of Cassius Clay. He just didn't know it yet. He won his first amateur fight at the age of 14, and 2 years later, he won a novice Golden Gloves tournament at light heavyweight. At the age of 19, Clay was the winner of the National Golden Gloves Tournament of Champions and the winner of the AAU national title for the light heavyweight division. As the best amateur in the country, Clay was selected to represent the USA in the 1960 Rome Olympics, which he almost refused due to his fear of flying. Standing at 6'3", fast and athletic, Clay was dominant in the Olympic tournament, and he deservedly won the gold medal after beating the Polish Zbigniew Pietrzakowski in the final. Return home and start of a professional career. Now an Olympic champion, Cassius Clay returned home and proudly wore his medal around Kentucky. He went on to eat downtown but couldn't get served in a restaurant. "We don't serve Negroes," the waiter said. "I don't eat Negroes too, just bring me a hamburger," a quick-witted boxer replied. Disgusted and disappointed, he thought something was deeply wrong in the country where his dad fought in wars, and he won the Olympic gold but still wasn't treated as equal. Cassius turned pro after 105 amateur fights, winning exactly 100 of them. He signed a deal with the Louisville Sponsoring Group, and his first contract was $400 a month plus 50% of the gate. Clay then made another career-altering move and called the 5th Street Gym in Miami, where Angelo Dundee was the head coach. He moved to Florida and immediately began training with Dundee, who would be in his corner for all but 2 career fights. Cassius was still a teenager with an unpolished skill set and not all the way physically developed as a heavyweight, weighing less than 190 pounds. Still, his speed proved to be too much for all his opponents, and he fought more like a middleweight than a proper heavyweight. Trash talk and championship years, but neither his agility nor an Olympic gold medal was his most prominent feature. Clay got known for his trash talk, which he picked up from the professional wrestler Gorgeous George Wagner, whom he met in 1961 at the beginning of his boxing career. Clay realized that trash-talking made a difference in the number of sold tickets. The story of the fight between Sonny Liston and Cassius Clay, which took place on February 25, 1964, is one of the most iconic moments in boxing history. Clay, who later changed his name to Muhammad Ali, was a brash and confident young fighter who had just begun to make a name for himself in the sport. Liston, on the other hand, was a fearsome veteran with a record of 35 wins and only 1 loss. He was widely considered one of the most powerful punchers in boxing history, with the ability to knock out opponents with either hand. Liston was also known for his strength, often compared to that of a bull. As the fight approached, Liston was considered an 8-1 favorite. Clay, however, was undeterred. He had been trash-talking Liston for weeks, calling him an ugly bear and pointing out that a champion should be beautiful like him. Clay's brash behavior endeared him to some fans, but others viewed him as a disrespectful jokester. During Liston's preparations for the fight, Clay appeared at his practices and public appearances, annoying the veteran fighter with his antics. Many thought that Clay's trash talk was just an empty threat, and that he would only last a few rounds against Liston. When the fight finally began, Liston attacked Clay with a fury, trying to decapitate him with his punches. However, Clay's speed and agility allowed him to dodge Liston's shots and land quick combinations of his own. Liston grew increasingly frustrated as the fight wore on, and Clay was winning every round. However, in the fourth round, Clay temporarily lost his sight and wanted to give up. He asked his coach to untie his gloves, but his trainer, Angelo Dundee, managed to wash out his eyes and motivate him to continue. By the fifth round, Clay had regained his sight, and Liston was running out of energy. Liston went for broke in the fifth round, trying to bring down the annoying challenger with all his remaining strength. However, Clay managed to remain standing, and he returned in the sixth round reinvigorated and ready to win. The 22-year-old challenger dominated Liston in the sixth round, and the champ collapsed in his chair, spat out his mouthguard, and said that he was done. The fight was over, and boxing had a new heavyweight champion. Clay shouted into the microphone, "I'm so bad, I'm so pretty, I shook up the world." This would be his last fight under his birth name. 2 days later, he shocked the boxing world again by announcing that he had accepted the teachings of the Nation of Islam. 2 weeks later, he took the name Muhammad Ali, which was given to him by his spiritual mentor, Elijah Muhammad. Despite changing his name, nothing changed in the ring for Ali. For the next 3 years, he completely dominated heavyweight boxing, much like Rocky Marciano and Joe Louis before him. In a rematch against Liston, he triumphed after a phantom knockout in the first round. The story of the Liston-Clay fight is one of the most dramatic in sports history. It is a testament to the power of trash talk, the resilience of the human spirit, and the importance of seizing the moment. Ali's victory over Liston marked the beginning of his rise to celebrity status and his emergence as a powerful voice for social justice and civil rights. It also marked a turning point in the history of boxing, as Ali became one of the most iconic and beloved figures in the sport. One of the most controversial fights of all time took place in 1967 when Muhammad Ali defended his title against Ernie Terrell. Many people believed that Ali could have ended the fight sooner, but he chose to prolong it and humiliate his opponent. Despite this, Ali went on to defend his title 8 more times and was never in danger of losing. He was in his physical prime and a class above everyone else in the sport. His famous Ali shuffle and quick movements in the ring made him unstoppable. However, in 1967, citing his religious beliefs, Ali refused induction into the U.S. Army at the height of the Vietnam War. Unlike most athletes who wouldn't dare speak up against the government, Ali was intelligent and brave enough to fight for his beliefs and not back down. He famously said, "I don't want to quarrel with no Viet Cong. They haven't done anything to me. They never called me in." As a result of his refusal to enlist, Ali was threatened with imprisonment. Standing before a completely white jury, Ali was sentenced to 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. However, an appeal was filed immediately and bail was paid, so Ali did not go to prison. Nevertheless, he was stripped of his world title and boxing license and would not have an official boxing match for 3.5 years. The 3 years that were stolen from him were the best years of his career when he was at his peak. His legendary coach, Angelo Dundee, said that injustice only put more wood to the fire and gave Ali another title, that of a people's champ. After returning to boxing, Ali's case went to the Supreme Court, which ruled unanimously in his favor, making him eligible to return to the ring. He defeated Jerry Quarry and Oscar Bonavena in 2 largely uneventful fights that served as an hors d'oeuvre for the main dish, Joe Frazier. Dubbed the fight of the century, it was the first time in history that 2 undefeated heavyweight boxing champions met in the ring. Frazier had become the most dominant fighter in the world in Ali's absence, destroying everybody with his quick movement and disastrous left hook. Both fighters were in their prime years. Frazier was 27 and Ali was 29. The marketing for the fight was something never seen before in the world of boxing. Ali was a master marketer and positioned himself as the embodiment of black discontent. For the success of the campaign, the opponent had to become the embodiment of the problem. As Frazier was also black, Ali started calling him Uncle Tom, the derogatory name for racial traitors. This pushed Frazier into a vengeful psychosis from which he did not recover for the next 30 years. Ali's rhyming propaganda united the black community against Frazier, and his family received threats on a daily basis. Frazier's kids were bullied at school, and at the height of preparations for the match, Frazier was guarded by the police. Apart from that, Ali was also calling him ugly, a gorilla, and generally tried to make him look bad in any way he could. On March 8, 1971, Muhammad Ali confidently stepped into the sacred Madison Square Garden, and the people's champion came for his stolen gold. Opposite of him stood the seething Joe Frazier, who was finally in the place where he could retaliate against Ali's verbal abuse in the best way he knew how, with his fists. Before his suspension, Muhammad Ali was elusively fast and relied more on his athletic ability than on his fighting intelligence. He wasn't by any means slow during his first match with Frazier, but he wasn't dancing like Fred Astaire anymore. Because of his. In the early 1970s, Muhammad Ali fought frequently, winning 10 fights in a row before suffering another loss in 1973 to a little-known fighter named Ken Norton. Norton broke Ali's jaw in the second round, leading to a 12-round upset decision. Ali had downplayed his opponent and not taken him seriously, often playing in the ring with his hands down or shuffling around without throwing punches. Prior to the Norton fight, he had not trained properly and had spent more time with women than with his trainer, Angelo Dundee. Ali had gained weight and had a cushion around his belly, weighing more than 220 pounds. He was intoxicated with greatness and had been winning fights so easily. Ali said after the loss that something sobered him up again, and he returned 6 months later with no extra weight, weighing 210 pounds. The rematch against Sonny Liston was close, and the decision was somewhat controversial, but Ali successfully avenged the loss and defeated Norton by a split decision. After that, the time had come to avenge his first loss against Frazier, who had lost his title to George Foreman. In the second fight, again at Madison Square Garden, Ali was able to secure a decision victory over Frazier in a vastly better performance than the first time they collided. After the win, he finally came to the position he so desperately craved, to fight for the World Heavyweight Championship, the Rumble in the Jungle. Coming to the fight with Ali, George Foreman had amassed 40 professional victories, winning only 3 by decision, and the vast majority of his fights ended in the first 3 rounds, including dominant victories over Frazier and Norton. They had both beaten Ali but lasted only 2 rounds with Foreman. Nobody thought Ali would stand much chance against the hardest-hitting man the world had ever seen, who was also 7 years younger than Ali and in his physical prime. Of course, Ollie thought differently and trash-talked George in the build-up, creating enormous interest in the fight. Dictator Mobutu paid $10 million for the match to be held in Kinshasa in October 1974. The fight was originally set in August but was postponed for 6 weeks due to Foreman's cut and sparring, and both fighters stayed in Zaire. Ali was followed by tens of thousands of people at every step, hugging and kissing children, women, and the elderly, and went everywhere without security. On the other hand, Foreman mostly frowned and was followed by his German Shepherd, which was a huge mistake. The slave owners in Zaire used such dogs, and this completely turned the local population against George, who shouted, "Ali, kill him," when the fight was approaching. Ali's coaches were genuinely afraid for his life against such a terrifying puncher. The plane was ready to transfer Ali to Madrid if the injuries after the fight would be too severe. However, that would not be necessary, as Ali was able to shock the world again. Instead of dodging the blows and moving around the ring, Ali leaned on the ropes and tried to protect his head, suffering incredibly strong blows to his body. Foreman punched and punched, but Ali kept standing against the ropes. In almost insane ecstasy, he yelled at Foreman in between the punches, "Only one man on the planet amid a life-and-death struggle can utter something as ridiculous and daunting as, 'Is that all you got, George?'" Foreman started to get incredibly tired, and then Ali shifted from his rope-a-dope defense and began fighting back. The combination of 5 blows to the head, spiced with a right hook, was enough to knock out the big George Foreman and bring all the spectators into delirium. Hit the subscribe button for more videos.